Be me, Walter, pushing my mid-30s, working as a senior IT specialist for a decent-sized company, the kind of place that isn't a flashy startup, but also isn't a soulless corporate monolith, just a regular place to earn a paycheck and go home. My little corner of the world is the IT department. There were 5 of us, all guys. Not by design, it just happened that way. We had our own ecosystem, a well-oiled machine built on caffeine, inside jokes, and a mutual understanding that we were the digital plumbers holding the whole building together. Our boss, David, was a manager from the old school. His philosophy was simple. If the network is up and the help desk tickets are closing, he doesn't need to know the details. He left us alone, and we delivered. It was a perfect arrangement. The atmosphere was relaxed. We'd talk about everything from new graphics cards to weekend DIY projects. If someone was stuck on a complex problem, 2 or 3 of us would huddle around their desk, throwing ideas around until we cracked it. No need for a formal meeting, no need to schedule a brainstorming session. Just pure, efficient collaboration. We ate lunch together most days, not because we had to, but because we wanted to. It was our time to decompress, to complain about the latest terrible software update corporate forced on us, or just talk about a movie we saw. It was comfortable. It was a brotherhood, of a sort. We worked hard, we respected each other, and there was zero drama. It was the kind of work environment people say they want. And then she arrived. I remember it was a Monday, probably late spring because the air conditioning was just starting to fight a losing battle with the sun. David called us into the small conference room. Standing next to him was a woman, maybe a few years younger than me. Her name was Nicole. David announced she was the new marketing manager, hired to bridge the gap between their creative vision and our technical execution. Corporate buzzwords that meant we were about to get a lot more work. My first impression of Nicole was severe. Everything was sharp angles. Her suit, her haircut, the way she held her tablet like a shield. She didn't smile, just gave a single curt nod to the room. We all did the awkward round of introductions. When it was my turn, I just said, "Walter, IT. If it has a plug, I'm probably the guy to call." It's my standard line. Usually gets a small chuckle. From Nicole, I got nothing. Just a blank, analytical stare. The first red flag appeared less than an hour later. One of my colleagues, a junior guy who is brilliant with databases, was trying to explain to her why her request for real-time petabyte-scale analytics for a simple banner ad was, to put it mildly, not feasible with our current infrastructure. He was being incredibly patient, using analogies about water pipes and reservoirs to make the concept of bandwidth and processing power easy to grasp. He was genuinely trying to be helpful. Halfway through his explanation, she held up a hand. The gesture was so sharp and sudden, he actually stopped talking mid-sentence. She told him that she had a degree and understood the basic principles of data flow, so she didn't need him to mansplain it to her. The word just hung in the air. The room went completely silent. You could feel the air pressure change. The kid just blinked, his face turning a little red. He mumbled an apology and retreated to his side of the table. The rest of the meeting was cold and formal. The easy collaborative energy we had just minutes before was gone, replaced by a tense, cautious formality. We all saw it. It wasn't about the technical explanation. It was a power play. She was drawing a line in the sand on her very first day. After the meeting, we shuffled back to our desks. No one said anything for a while. The silence was louder than our usual background chatter. That first incident set the tone for the weeks to come. Nicole was hyper-aware of workplace dynamics, but only through a very specific lens. Every interaction seemed to be scanned and analyzed for any hint of what she considered toxic masculinity. One time, one of the guys greeted a group of us, including her, with a casual, "Hey guys, morning." Later that day, we all received a department-wide email from her with a link to an article about gender-neutral language in the workplace. She didn't name him, but everyone knew who and what it was about. The guy who sent the email felt terrible, even though he hadn't done anything wrong. He was just being friendly. After that, our language became stilted and careful whenever she was around. The easy banter disappeared. The jokes stopped. We started communicating with her more and more through email, even when she was sitting 20 feet away. It was just safer. An email leaves a paper trail, and your words can't be misconstrued in the same way. She seemed to prefer it that way, too. Her interactions were always transactional. She needed something. We provided it. No pleasantries, no small talk. The department became two separate worlds. There was the world of the five of us, where we could still be ourselves, and then there was the world when Nicole was present. We were walking on eggshells, constantly afraid that an off-the-cuff remark or a simple gesture of help would be misinterpreted and weaponized. This brings me to the incident, the one that changed everything. It was a few weeks after she started. Nicole was spearheading a huge new digital campaign. It was her baby, the project that was supposed to prove her value to the company. A big part of it involved a custom analytics dashboard that our team had built. It was a powerful tool, but it had its quirks. It was resource-intensive and pulled data from a server that was notoriously unstable under heavy load. We all knew the workarounds. There were certain scripts you had to run in a specific order. Certain times of day you avoided running big queries. It was tribal knowledge, the kind of stuff you learn from experience, not from a manual. I was walking back from the coffee machine when I saw her at her desk, looking increasingly frustrated. She was clicking furiously, her jaw tight. I glanced at her screen and immediately saw the problem. She was trying to pull a massive data set from the analytics server, but she was doing it in a way that was almost guaranteed to cause it to time out. She was essentially trying to fit a fire hose of data through a garden hose. I saw her let out a frustrated sigh and lean back in her chair, staring at the frozen progress bar. My first instinct, the instinct of any IT guy who has been doing this for over a decade, was to help. It wasn't about her. It was about the problem, a problem I knew how to solve. My brain calculated the variables. Her project was important for the company. Her being stuck was inefficient. I had a solution that would take me 2 minutes to explain and would save her hours of frustration. The logical, professional, and even decent thing to do was to offer assistance. So, I walked over. I kept a respectable distance from her desk, didn't want to seem like I was crowding her. I started off friendly and non-confrontational. I said something like, "Hey Nicole, looks like you're having a fight with the analytics server." She turned to look at me, her expression unreadable. I continued, pointing vaguely at her screen. "That's a common issue. The server chokes if you try to pull that much data at once. There's a much faster way to do it by caching the query first. I can show you the command if you'd like." I was just trying to be helpful. That's it. It's my job to make the tech work for people. She stared at me for a few seconds, her eyes narrowing slightly. Then, in a voice that was perfectly calm, but dripping with ice, she spoke. She said that she was perfectly capable of doing her own job. She told me that she had not requested my assistance, and that my unsolicited offer to show her how to do something was condescending. She finished by saying that my standing over her shoulder was disrupting her workflow, and she would appreciate it if I returned to my own desk. I was stunned. It was like I'd offered a drowning person a life raft, and they had accused me of trying to steal their water. I could feel my face get hot. All I could do was raise my hands in a don't shoot gesture and say, "All right, no problem." I turned around and walked back to my desk, feeling the eyes of my 4 colleagues on my back. They had heard the whole thing. I sat down, opened a ticket that had nothing to do with anything, and just stared at the screen, replaying the interaction in my head. I hadn't been condescending. I hadn't been aggressive. I had been helpful. And I had been treated like I was some kind of villain for it. I decided right then and there, fine, never again. I would not offer Nicole help ever again unless she submitted a formal, written request through the proper channels. If she wanted to spend the next 3 hours wrestling with that server, that was her choice. I put on my headphones and tried to get back to work, but I was fuming. The next morning, I had an email in my inbox. It was from HR. The subject line was "Formal Meeting Request." My stomach dropped. The email was polite and vague, asking me to come to a meeting with David and an HR representative that afternoon to discuss a workplace interaction. I knew immediately what it was about. I spent the whole morning with a knot of anxiety in my gut. I went over the conversation with Nicole 100 times. What did I do wrong? I came up with nothing. When the time for the meeting came, I walked into David's office. He was already there, looking uncomfortable. The HR rep, a woman I'd only ever seen at company-wide presentations, sat next to him, holding a notepad. They asked me to sit down. The HR rep started by saying that a formal complaint had been filed by Nicole. She said Nicole had reported an incident where I had approached her desk, uninvited, and engaged in behavior that she felt was an attempt to undermine her authority and competence. The HR rep used specific words: microaggression, unsolicited criticism, creating a hostile environment. I was speechless. I tried to explain my side of the story. I explained that the server was tricky, that I saw she was stuck, and that my only intention was to help a colleague and solve a technical problem. I said I was just trying to be efficient and collaborative. The HR rep listened patiently, nodding. When I was finished, she looked at me and said that while my intentions may have been good, the impact of my actions was what mattered. She said that in the modern workplace, it was crucial to respect boundaries, and that offering help where it wasn't requested could be perceived as questioning a colleague's skills. David, my boss, just sat there, avoiding my gaze. He didn't defend me. He didn't offer any context about how our department normally operates. He just nodded along with HR. The meeting ended with me receiving a formal verbal warning that would be noted in my employee file. They told me to ensure all my future interactions with Nicole were strictly professional. I walked out of that office feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. It wasn't just about the warning. It was the complete and total invalidation of my character. I had spent my entire career being the helpful go-to guy, and now I was being officially reprimanded for it. The system, the very corporate structure that was supposed to be impartial, had taken her side without any real investigation. Her feelings trumped my intentions. Her perception became the official reality. I went back to my desk and sat there for a long time, not doing anything. My colleagues could tell from my face that it had gone badly. After work, we all went to a nearby bar. I told them everything: the complaint, the meeting, the corporate buzzwords, the verbal warning. As they listened, I saw their expressions change from sympathy to anger. They were angry for me, but they were also angry for themselves. They realized that what happened to me could have just as easily happened to any one of them. Any one of them could have tried to help. Any one of them could have been the subject of a complaint. It was a sobering realization. The comfortable, collaborative environment we had was an illusion. It was fragile, and it could be shattered by a single person who knew how to manipulate the system. We sat there for a while, just thinking. We knew we couldn't go on like this. Walking on eggshells wasn't a sustainable way to work. We had to protect ourselves. And that's when we came up with a new plan. It wasn't a plan for revenge. It was a plan for survival. The plan was simple, deceptively simple. It wasn't born out of malice, but out of a need for self-preservation. We called it the Professionalism Protocol. The core idea was this: Nicole wanted a purely professional, boundaries-obsessed, by-the-book work environment. So that's exactly what we were going to give her. We would follow the corporate rulebook to the letter. Malicious compliance in its purest form. No more casual conversations. No more friendly, unsolicited advice. No more 5-minute favors at our desks. Every single interaction with Nicole would be documented. If she needed something, no matter how small, she had to submit a formal IT ticket with a clear, detailed description of the problem. If she had a question, she had to send an email. No more stopping by our desks for a quick chat. We would be polite. We would be professional. We would be completely and utterly unhelpful in any way that wasn't explicitly required by our job descriptions. The tribal knowledge, the little tricks and shortcuts that kept the department running smoothly, that was now a members-only benefit. We sealed the pact over a second round of beers. There was no triumphant cheering. It felt more like a grim necessity, like boarding up the windows before a hurricane. The next day, the change was immediate. The air in the office was different, colder. Nicole came in, and as she walked past our desks, we all just gave her a polite, professional nod. No good mornings, no friendly greetings, just a nod. She didn't seem to notice at first, or if she did, she didn't show it. The first test came around mid-morning. She walked over to the desk of one of my colleagues, the database guy she had accused of mansplaining on her first day. She started asking him a question about some sales figures. He let her finish, then looked up from his screen with a perfectly neutral expression. He told her that it was a great question, and to ensure it was properly tracked and prioritized, she should submit it through the official help desk portal. She just stood there for a moment, blinking. It was a perfectly reasonable, corporate-approved request. There was nothing she could complain about. She looked a little annoyed, but she turned around without a word and went back to her desk. We heard her typing a few moments later. The ticket came through. He worked on it and sent her the answer via the ticketing system an hour later. A process that would have taken 30 seconds as a conversation was now a documented hour-long task. It was like that all day. Every time she tried to initiate a verbal conversation, she was gently but firmly redirected to the official channels. Could you just look at this for a second? Of course, just email me the link and a description of the issue, and I'll add it to my queue. I just have a quick question about the server status. The latest status report was emailed out this morning. For any further details, please submit a ticket. We were human auto-replies, polite, efficient, and completely impersonal. At first, she seemed almost pleased. This was the environment she wanted, right? No messy human interactions, just a clean, transactional flow of information. But the cracks started to show within a week. She didn't realize how much she had relied on the informal flow of information. She was no longer privy to the little conversations that saved hours of work. For instance, we'd often give each other a heads up like, "Hey, I'm about to run a massive update on the main server. It's going to be slow for the next hour." Now, she received no such warning. Her reports would run inexplicably slowly, and she'd submit a ticket complaining about performance. We would then reply truthfully that maintenance was being performed as scheduled and that the slowdown was expected. She was always one step behind because she was no longer part of the conversation. The project that had caused all the trouble in the first place, her big digital campaign, began to suffer the most. She would submit tickets with her requirements. We would fulfill them, exactly as written. We were no longer applying our experience or intuition to her requests. If we saw a potential problem or a flaw in her logic, we said nothing. That wasn't our job. Our job was to complete the ticket. She requested a data export in a specific format. We provided it. We knew that format was incompatible with the new marketing software she was using, but she didn't ask about compatibility. She asked for a format. She got it. A few days later, a frantic ticket would arrive saying the data was corrupted. We would then investigate and reply that the data was not corrupted. It was simply in the format she had requested, which was, as per the software's documentation, not a supported format. She was losing days of work to problems that a simple 5-minute conversation could have prevented. The isolation began to take a visible toll. She used to seem so confident, so in control. Now, there was a constant tension in her posture. She started staying later, her desk lamp the only one on in our section of the office. She'd sit there, surrounded by the silent, dark desks of the IT department, completely alone. The rest of us continued our routines. We'd still talk, still joke, still help each other out. But the moment she approached, the conversation would die. It wasn't even intentional. After a while, it became a reflex. The atmosphere would just change. We'd switch to professional mode. The breaking point came about a month into the new regime. It was the day of the big campaign launch. Her project, her moment to shine. It was a complete disaster. The website integration failed. The analytics dashboard she was supposed to present to the VPs was showing garbled data. The whole thing was dead on arrival. The reason was a cascade of small technical errors. An API key had been updated. A server path had been changed. A database schema had been tweaked. These were all things that had been communicated within our team through casual chats and emails. We all knew about them. We had all adjusted our own work accordingly. But Nicole was not on those email chains. She was not part of those conversations. She had built her entire project on a foundation of outdated information because she had cut herself off from the source. The fallout was immediate. David called an emergency meeting. Us, Nicole, and a couple of VPs who looked furious. Nicole was on the verge of tears. She was trying to explain what happened, but it was all just a jumble of technical terms she barely understood. Then, she turned and pointed a shaking finger at our team. She said we had sabotaged her. She claimed we had deliberately withheld critical information to make her fail. She said we had created a hostile, exclusionary environment where she couldn't do her job. The VPs looked at us, their expressions grim. David, our boss, finally spoke up. He looked cornered. He turned to me and asked, "Walter, what's your response to this?" I took a deep breath. This was it, the moment of truth. I looked directly at the VPs, then at David. I explained in a calm and measured voice that our team had followed all company protocols for communication and project management. I stated that all of our work was documented in the ticketing system. Then the HR rep from my meeting, who had been called in, asked the crucial questions. "Did you at any point refuse to complete a task requested by Nicole?" I replied, "No. We completed every ticket she submitted." "Did anyone on your team use unprofessional language or behave rudely towards her?" "No. In fact, following a prior HR complaint, we made it a strict policy to limit our interactions with Miss Nicole to formal, documented channels to avoid any possibility of miscommunication." I let that last part hang in the air. I saw the HR rep's eyes flicker with recognition. She remembered my verbal warning. The narrative flipped. This wasn't a story about a team of men bullying a female colleague. This was a story about a team that had been so terrified of a frivolous HR complaint that they had retreated into a shell of pure, unassailable professionalism. We hadn't been hostile. We had been obedient. We had followed their rules. We had respected her boundaries. We had done exactly what they told me to do. And this was the result. David, seeing his chance to deflect blame, chimed in. He confirmed that our department's ticket response times were excellent and that he had reviewed our communications and found them to be nothing but professional. He looked at Nicole and said, "Nicole, it seems the IT team did their job. You requested a purely formal working relationship, and that's what they gave you. I can't force them to be your friends." The silence in that room was crushing. Nicole just sat there, her face pale. She had been so sure that the system would protect her, that her narrative of being a victim would win the day. But we had used the system's own logic against her. We hadn't broken a single rule. She had built her own prison, and we had simply handed her the key. The meeting ended with the VPs saying they would reevaluate the project's leadership. Everyone knew what that meant. After that day, Nicole was a ghost. She was still there, physically, but her authority was gone. Her projects were handed off to someone else. She stopped trying to engage with anyone. She would come in, put her headphones on, and leave at 5 o'clock on the dot. There was no grand apology, no moment of realization where she admitted she was wrong. She just faded. The atmosphere in the office slowly started to return to normal, but it was never quite the same. We were a little more cautious, a little more aware of how quickly things could turn sour. But the brotherhood was intact. If anything, the whole ordeal had made it stronger. We had faced a threat, not with aggression, but with discipline and unity. Nicole eventually left the company a few months later. No farewell party, no goodbye email. One day her desk was just empty. I sometimes wonder if she ever understood what happened. She probably tells people she was driven out of a toxic, male-dominated tech department, and in a way she'd be right. She found the environment toxic, but she was the one who brought the poison. All we did was let her drink it.
Be 44, city manager of mid-sized city in Arizona. Population 180,000, suburban sprawl outside Phoenix metro area. Salary $195,000. Appointed position, serve at pleasure of city council. Been in municipal government for 21 years, work my way up. Started as assistant planner, became department head, now city manager. This is pinnacle of local government career, most powerful unelected position. I run day-to-day operations, manage all departments, implement council policies. Hire and fire department heads, control $340 million annual budget. City council sets policy, I execute it. They're my bosses, but mostly hands-off. 7 council members, mix of conservative and moderate, avoid controversy. Mayor is Bill Henderson, 58, small business owner, been mayor 8 years. He's old school, focuses on roads and public safety, not much vision. When I was hired 2 years ago, council wanted professional management. Modernize operations, improve efficiency, attract young professionals. City has reputation for being behind the times, stuck in 1990s. I'm here to drag them into 21st century, whether they like it or not. City has 1,400 employees across all departments. Police, fire, public works, parks, planning, utilities, everything. Department head positions are key. They run their departments with autonomy. When I arrived, all 9 department heads were men, all white, all over 50. Classic good old boys network. Been here 15 to 25 years each. They golf together, have lunch together, protect each other. It's everything wrong with local government. It's why nothing changes. First year, I spend observing, learning, building relationships, but also documenting problems, identifying who needs to go. Fire Chief Tom Williams, 61, been chief for 18 years. Response times are mediocre. Department morale is poor. But he's popular with council. They're all friends from Rotary Club. Public Works Director Mike Chun, 56, been here 22 years. Streets have potholes. Infrastructure is crumbling. Projects are delayed. But he's protected by union relationships and institutional knowledge. Police Chief Robert Davis, 58, 24 years with department. Chief for 8. Crime rates are stable, but community relations are terrible. Lots of complaints about aggressive policing, lack of transparency. All of them are problems. All of them need to go. But I need cause, need justification, can't just fire them for being men. Start creating performance metrics, new accountability systems. quarterly reviews, citizen satisfaction surveys, efficiency benchmarks. They're annoyed. They see it as unnecessary bureaucracy. We've been doing fine for decades. Why change now? That's exactly the problem. Doing fine isn't good enough anymore. Year 18 months in, first opportunity presents itself. Fire Chief Tom announces retirement. Finally, he's 61 and tired. This is my chance to bring in new leadership, fresh perspective. Begin national search for new fire chief, advertise widely. Get 47 applications, review them with HR and assistant city manager. 5 finalists, for men with extensive fire service experience. 1 woman, Jennifer Martinez, 38, currently assistant chief in Colorado. She has 16 years experience, good credentials, progressive approach. But the 4 male candidates have more experience, more time as chief. One guy has been chief at 3 different departments, 25 years experience. In traditional hiring, he'd be the obvious choice, most qualified on paper. But I'm not doing traditional hiring. I'm transforming this organization. Interview all 5 candidates. Male candidates are competent but boring. Same old approaches, same old thinking, maintain status quo. Jennifer is energetic, talks about community engagement and innovation, about modernizing fire service, about building diverse teams. She's exactly what this city needs, exactly what I want to hire. Present finalists to City Council in executive session. Council is expecting me to recommend the most experienced candidate. Instead, I recommend Jennifer. She brings fresh perspective and new ideas. Council member asks, "What about John? He's been a chief for 12 years." Jennifer's innovative approach better aligns with our city's future. Another council member, she's only been assistant chief, not chief. She's ready for the challenge, and we need her leadership style. Mayor Bill is skeptical. Seems like we're passing over more qualified candidates. We're choosing the best candidate for where we want to go, not where we've been. Vote is 4-3 to approve Jennifer. Barely passes, I got my way. Jennifer starts as fire chief. She's nervous but excited. She's the first woman fire chief in city's history. It's a big deal. Local paper does profile, breaking barriers in city leadership. I'm thrilled. This is progress. This is what change looks like. But the fire department is less thrilled. Firefighters are skeptical. She's an outsider. She's younger than most captains. She's implementing changes. New policies on community outreach, diversity recruitment, mental health. Old guard firefighters resist. We're here to fight fires, not do social work. But she's chief. They have to comply. Culture change takes time. 6 months later, another opportunity, Public Works Director retiring. Mike Chun hits mandatory retirement age of 65, has to leave. Another chance to bring in new leadership. I'm ready. This time I'm more intentional, more strategic about the search. We get 38 applications. I'm specifically looking for women candidates. Find 3 women with public works experience, all mid-career. Sarah Johnson, 42, Assistant PW Director in New Mexico. Lisa Rodriguez, 45, City Engineer in California. Amy Chun, 39, Operations Manager in Oregon. None of them have been PW Director before, but they're ready. Also have 5 male candidates with director experience. One guy has run public works for city of $300,000 for 8 years. But I'm not interested in the male candidates. I'm building something. I'm creating a women's leadership network in city government. Interview the 3 women. They're all competent, all capable. Sarah has most experience, best understanding of infrastructure. Recommend her to council. Same pushback as before. What about David? He's done this job for 8 years in a bigger city. Sarah brings innovation and efficiency focus we need. Council is more resistant this time. Vote is 4-3 again. They're noticing the pattern. They're seeing what I'm doing. But I'm city manager. Hiring is my authority. They approved her. Sarah starts as Public Works Director. She's eager and hardworking. But Public Works is complex. Infrastructure is complicated. She's learning on the job, making mistakes, fixing them as she goes. Pothole response times get slower, project timelines slip. Citizens start complaining, why is it taking so long to fix our streets? But I defend her. She's new. She needs time to learn the department. Over the next year, 3 more department head positions open up. Planning director retires. Parks director takes job elsewhere. Utilities director gets fired for ethics violation. 3 positions to fill, 3 opportunities to continue building. For each position, I prioritize women candidates. Not because I'm excluding men, I tell myself, but because I'm correcting historical imbalances, creating opportunities. End result: hired 3 more women as department heads. All are qualified, all meet minimum requirements. But in each case, there were more experienced male candidates. Now city leadership is 6 women department heads, 3 men. I've completely flipped the ratio in 2 years. I'm proud of this. This is transformation. This is progress. But I'm also noticing problems, small problems becoming bigger. Fire department response times are up slightly, nothing major. Public works projects are delayed. Streets aren't being maintained. Planning approvals are taking longer. Developers are frustrated. Parks maintenance is slipping. Facilities are looking shabby. Each department has its issues. I attribute it to adjustment period. New leaders need time to settle in, learn their departments. But citizens are starting to notice. Complaints are increasing. City council members are getting calls from constituents. Why did it take 3 weeks to fix the traffic light? Why hasn't the pothole on my street been filled in 6 months? Why is the park bathroom still broken after multiple reports? Council starts asking me questions in public meetings. City manager, can you explain the increase in service delays? We're undergoing leadership transition, temporary growing pains. How long will these growing pains last? It's been 18 months. Complex organizations take time to transform. Council approve these hires. I'm getting defensive. They're questioning my judgment. Month 22, major incident, everything starts falling apart. Severe monsoon storm hits, flash flooding, power outages, trees down. This is when city services get tested. Emergency response is critical. Fire Chief Jennifer coordinates emergency response, but it's chaotic. Response times are slow, communication is poor, resources misallocated. She's overwhelmed, never managed emergency of this scale before. Makes several bad calls, sends crews to wrong locations. One neighborhood floods while fire trucks are across town. Public Works Director Sarah is supposed to coordinate street clearing, but she doesn't know the drainage system, doesn't know which streets flood. Calls the retired director Mike Chun at home for advice. He has to walk her through the emergency response protocols. By the time streets are cleared, flood damage is extensive. Parks Director Lisa is managing shelter operations at community centers. But she never ran shelters before, doesn't know the procedures. Shelters are chaotic, supplies are mismanaged, people are angry. Storm lasts 12 hours. Aftermath is a disaster. $8 million in flood damage, much of it preventable. 2,000 residents displaced, 15 businesses destroyed. Local news covers it extensively, interviews angry residents. Where was the city? Why weren't streets cleared faster? Why did it take so long for help to arrive? Mayor Bill is furious. Council is furious. Residents are furious. Emergency council meeting is called. I'm required to present. Walk in, it's packed, 200 plus angry residents in audience. Council chambers only hold 100. People are standing in hallways. This is bad, really bad, worse than I thought. Mayor Bill opens meeting. We're here to discuss the emergency response and the apparent failures in multiple city departments. Residents line up for public comment. 3 hours of testimony. Woman whose house flooded. I called 911. They said help was coming. Waited 4 hours. Water destroyed everything I own. Business owner whose store was destroyed. Why weren't streets cleared? Water couldn't drain. It pooled on our street, flooded our building. Retired city employee, former public works, speaks up. Mike Chin knew every drain in this city, knew which streets flood first. He would have had crews pre-positioned, would have prevented this. But you fired him and hired someone who doesn't know the city. Council member interrupts. Mike retired. We didn't fire him. Retired employee. He was pushed out. Everyone knows it. City manager wanted women in all the positions. Experience didn't matter. The accusation hangs in the air. Everyone is watching me. Another resident. I'm all for women in leadership, but they need to be qualified. Our fire chief didn't know where to send crews. I watched them drive past my burning garage. Former firefighter stands up. Tom Williams knew this city like the back of his hand. 30 years responding to emergencies. You replaced him with someone from out of state, who's been here 18 months and doesn't know the terrain. The testimony goes on and on. 3 hours of angry residents, all saying the same thing. New leadership is unqualified. Services have degraded. Response times are worse. City is falling apart. Council members are taking notes, exchanging glances. They're seeing what I didn't want them to see. After public comment, Mayor Bill addresses me directly. City manager, how do you respond to these concerns? About the qualifications of the department heads you've hired. I'm prepared. I have talking points. All department heads meet the minimum qualifications for their positions. They bring new perspectives and innovative approaches. The storm was unprecedented. Any leadership would have struggled. Council member interrupts. Let's look at the data. She pulls out a document. She's done research. In the past 2 years, you've hired 6 new department heads. All 6 are women. Most have less experience than other candidates. Is that coincidence or intentional pattern? Feel my face getting hot. I hired the best candidates for each position. The best candidates, or the candidates who matched a demographic preference. Another council member, a woman, speaks up. I supported these hires. I wanted more women in leadership. But I assumed they'd be the most qualified, not just qualified enough. She pulls out the hiring files she's been investigating. For fire chief, you recommended Jennifer with 16 years experience, over John, who had 25 years experience and had been chief for 12. For public works, you recommended Sarah, who'd never been director, over David, who'd run public works for a city of 300,000. She goes through each hire, showing the pattern. In every case, I chose less experienced woman over more experienced man. This isn't about gender equality. This is about preferential hiring that has resulted in decreased service quality and emergency response failures. Mayor Bill speaks up. Do you dispute these facts? I hired qualified candidates who bring diverse perspectives. That's not what I asked. Did you choose less experienced women over more experienced men? Can't lie. The data is right there. Yes, but. No buts. Yes or no. Did you prioritize gender over experience? Long pause. Everyone is watching. I prioritize candidates who would transform city culture. You prioritize gender, and it's had consequences. He presents more data. Citizen satisfaction surveys. Overall satisfaction with city services down 28% in 2 years. Response time satisfaction down 35%. Infrastructure maintenance satisfaction down 31%. Shows comparison to neighboring cities were falling behind. Cities similar to ours have maintained or improved services. We're the only one showing across-the-board decline. Another council member. I move that we conduct comprehensive review of all department head hiring decisions and performance metrics. Motion passes 6-1. They're investigating me officially. Over the next month, consultant comes in, reviews everything. Interviews staff, reviews hiring files, analyzes service metrics. Report comes back. It's 120 pages, devastating. Pattern of preferential hiring based on gender rather than qualifications. Measurable decline in service quality correlating with leadership changes. Department heads lack experience necessary for positions they hold. Consultant recommends immediate corrective action, including possible termination of city manager and department head reassignments. Council holds another public meeting to discuss report. Even more residents show up, 300+ people. This time they're organized, they have signs. Fire the city manager, and we need qualified leaders. Experience matters, and stop the experiment. Resident group has started recall petition, gathering signatures. Not to recall me, I'm appointed not elected, but to recall the council members who supported my hires. That gets council's attention, threatens their jobs. Meeting is contentious. Residents are angry. Council is defensive. Mayor Bill finally speaks up. We have to make changes. The data is clear. The public sentiment is clear. We need experienced leadership to restore city services. Council member who defended me tries to push back. We can't just fire all the women department heads. That's discrimination. We're not firing them for being women. We're addressing performance and experience gaps. Another council member, several positions are grant-funded and require specific experience levels. We may be in violation of grant requirements by having underqualified directors. City attorney speaks up. That's correct. Several federal grants require directors to have minimum experience, which some current department heads don't meet. I'm sitting there, watching my house of cards collapse. Everything I built, all the progress I made, falling apart. Council votes 6-1 to restructure city leadership. I'm given 30 days to resign or be terminated. Department heads are reassigned to other positions or let go. Jennifer, the fire chief, is reassigned to assistant chief. Sarah, public works, is reassigned to city engineer. Other women department heads are demoted or leave. They bring back some of the retired men as consultants. Mike Chun comes back temporarily to stabilize public works. Tom Williams is asked to help retrain fire department. Citizens are relieved. Council approval ratings go up. I resign before the 30 days. Don't want the termination on my record. Put out statement. Proud of the progress made in diversifying leadership. Sometimes transformational change meets resistance. It sounds hollow, sounds like excuse because it is. Local paper writes editorial. Good intentions, poor execution. City manager prioritized demographics over qualifications with predictable results. Start applying for other city manager positions. No one will touch me. Your tenure resulted in recall threats and leadership collapse. That's not the kind of experience we're looking for. Apply for assistant city manager roles, department head positions. Still too risky. Everyone's heard the story. The city manager who hired all women and crashed city services. 6 months unemployed, burning through savings. Finally get hired as management consultant for small municipalities. $85,000, less than half my previous salary, no authority, no power. Just advising small towns on administrative efficiency. 1 year after resigning, see article about my former city. City services restored after leadership overhaul. All metrics are back up, citizen satisfaction improved. Emergency response times better than ever. They hired experienced department heads, mix of men and women, but all highly qualified, all with extensive experience. Turns out you can have diversity and experience. You just have to prioritize qualifications over gender. 2 years later, 46 years old, still doing consulting. Make $92,000, small raises, nothing compared to $195,000 city manager. See that one of the council members I worked with is running for mayor. Her campaign platform. Qualified leadership over politics. Experience matters, credentials matter, results matter. She's using my failure as her campaign platform, and she wins, becomes mayor, popular with voters. Because everyone remembers the flood, the chaos, the failures. That happened under my transformational leadership. 3 years later, run into Sarah, former public works director. She's working as project manager at engineering firm. Not a director, just a project manager, doing okay. Hey, how are you doing? Good. Working on infrastructure projects, staying busy. I'm sorry about how everything turned out. She shakes her head. I wasn't ready for that job. I knew it, but I wanted the opportunity, so I took it. When the flood hit, I was in way over my head. She's being honest, more honest than I ever was. The old director, Mike, he tried to warn you, said I needed more time, Needed to learn the systems first. But you wanted a woman in the role, so you hire me anyway. She's right. Mike did warn me. I dismissed it as resistance. I set you up to fail. I'm sorry. We both made mistakes. You gave me a job I wasn't ready for. And I took it knowing I wasn't ready. She walks away, back to her project manager job, where her experience level actually matches the position. 4 years later, 48 years old, still consulting. Get invited to speak at local government conference. Topic is lessons learned in municipal leadership. They want me to talk about my failures, be the cautionary tale. Consider declining, but I need the visibility, need the work. Give the talk. Room is packed, 200 plus city managers and council members. I believed I was transforming city government, creating opportunities for women in leadership. But I prioritized gender over qualifications. Walk through the hires, the storm, the failures, the recall. I convinced myself that diversity was more important than experience, that good intentions would overcome skill gaps. I was wrong, and an entire city paid the price. Q&A session is brutal, people asking hard questions. Did you know you were hiring underqualified people? I thought they were qualified enough to learn on the job, but they weren't, and during emergencies, there's no time to learn. Another question, would you do it differently? Yes, I'd hire the most qualified people regardless of gender, and build diversity through mentorship and development, not by putting people in positions they're not ready for. Leave the conference feeling hollow, exposed, but also knowing it's true, all of it, every word. I did prioritize gender, I did hire underqualified people. And when the city needed experienced leadership, they weren't ready. Now I'm here, 48, making $92,000, doing small consulting projects. Former city manager who destroyed her career by hiring all women department heads regardless of qualifications, and watching city services collapse under inexperienced leadership. That's my legacy. That's what I'm known for. The city manager who chose gender over experience and led a city of 180,000 to the brink of collapse. Still believe in women's leadership, still support diversity. But now I understand that you can't sacrifice competence for representation. Can't put people in jobs they're not ready for. Can't use a city as an experiment in social engineering. Citizens deserve qualified leaders who can keep them safe, who know how to respond when monsoons flood the streets, who have the experience to make split-second decisions. Gender doesn't matter when your house is flooding. Only matters if the person in charge knows what they're doing. And I hired people who didn't know what they were doing, because I cared more about their gender than their qualifications. That's the truth, the painful truth. That cost me my career, cost the city millions, and cost residents their homes, their businesses, their trust. All because I thought diversity was more important than competence. I was wrong, catastrophically wrong. And I'm paying for it at 48, making half my salary. While the city thrives under experienced leadership. That includes women, but qualified women. Not just women I promoted because they were women. That's the difference. That's what I finally understand. 4 years too late, $100,000 salary too late. After the damage is done and can't be undone. That's my story, my failure, my lesson. Learned at the cost of a city's services. In my own career. Because I chose demographics over qualifications. And called it progress. When really it was just poor judgment. That collapsed under the weight of a monsoon. And took my career down with it.